Hey, Facebook and YouTube. It's Josiah here. I wanted to do a video of my recent record finds from June. First off, I went to here it is right here. There's 34 45s from 2 different locations, and 3 LPs and 6 cassettes. We'll start out with the cassettes first, and we'll leave the records for later. So these are some, if you guys are into any hair metal or any glam from the 80s, early 90s, there is, it's really hard to find any of it past about 88 or 89. A lot of it's only on CD, and if you do find it on vinyl, it's only in the UK or Venezuela or a different country, and you got to pay out the wazoo. You got to pay $40, $100, $200, depending on when it was made. If it came from 90 or 91, you might get it for $50 or less, but if it came from 92, 93, 95, 98, you're going to pay hundreds of dollars most of the time. But then there's an exception. That's the weird thing about record collecting, is there's an exception because it's only with hard rock and heavy metal from the late 80s and early 90s. Not R&B. I never find. You can find New Jack Swing and R&B and some hip hop, not a whole bunch, but some hip hop and 90s country. At least in the early years, the early parts of the decade, probably 90 through 93, you can find 45s and LPs. After that, it's really hard and really expensive. And sometimes they didn't even release them. First off, we have Dangerous Toy, self-titled, from 1989 on CBS. And something happened. Somehow it washed away. I touched it, and my hands weren't wet, but it all wiped away. So I'm gonna have to get a small Sharpie, like one of those fine pen ones, and write it all back down. They only made 2 albums. They made one in 89 and one in 91. Well, actually, they made more than that, but that's the only 2 that got popular. Bear with me. And these are from the year I was born. I was born in 89. So all this stuff was popular when I was a little baby. And all these cassettes are from 89 except for one, which is from 90. We have Danger Danger, self-titled, from 1989 on Image. And this is the one I'm really excited for because you don't find these every day. Victory. Culture Killed the Native narrative. On a label I've never heard of, Rampage. Tora Tora. one you don't see every day. And a LP copy will cost you $50 plus. And that's on A&M Records. Y and XYZ also from '89. Oh, I should mention, I didn't know this, but apparently Tora Tora was from Memphis. Most of the hair bands were from California, and there's even some from Baltimore and Texas. Because early Pantera was from Texas. And also, Victory is a German band with an English singer, with an American singer, for the first 3 albums. This is the 4th album. I really like their logo there. It's really cool. And that's on Enigma. And then let's fold this thing out because it's kind of neat. Yeah. Now these guys had 2 hits. They had Maggie. Well, they had 3 hits. Maggie, Inside Out, and Fall the Night. And this was their first album. They had an EP before this in '85 that I believe was only released in France. And finally, I'm really excited about this because you don't come across this every day, and a vinyl copy isn't super pricey, but I've never run across it. Heaven's Edge from 1990. Really good. They had a few hits that people probably don't remember, unless you grew up in that time. I was only 1 year old, so I don't really remember. Skin on Skin, and I believe Hold Tonight, and Daddy's Little Girl. This was their only release. I actually learned about this album from a YouTuber called Ranter with Shades. So shout out to him. He has a pretty cool video. You should check it out. It's about it's about obscure or lesser known glam and hard rock bands from the 80s and 90s. On to the 45s here. We've got the Esquire Boys from 1954 with Rockabeat and Boogie, backed with St. Louis Blues. Oh, and by the way, I found these at Earworm Records in Milford, Ohio on my vacation. I went down to Maysville, Kentucky. It's about an hour from here, a little bit over an hour. And I found these 3 for $5, and so I got a whole bunch of them. Oh, wrong one here. You got Chuck Berry, Maybelline. Oh, that was an awesome thing to find. Backed with Wee Hours. On chest, a Mambo. I don't know much about Mambo, but there's Mambo EP from '55 called Mambo Gardener. It's in really good shape for being 65 years old. There we go. One moment. Geisha Girl by Hank Lachlan from '57. Pretty good country, not rock and roll, but it has a good guitar line on it. I really like this song. I don't know much about Hank Lachlan, but I would definitely check his stuff out if you like older country. And Living Alone. Walking with Mr. Lee by Lee Allen and his band from '57. This is a really good one. Pretty Little Angel Eyes, a pretty upbeat pop slash doo-wop song from '61 by Lee Curtis, or by Curtis Lee, I mean. Backed with Gee, How I Wish You Were Here. On Excella Records, Slim Harpo, Don't Start Crying Now. And Raining in My Heart. One's blues, one side is more blues and one side is more rhythm blues. Kind of more upbeat. On Duke, you have Bobby Bland, Ain't Doing Too Bad, Part 1 and Part 2. I've been really getting into rhythm and blues from the late 40s to about the mid 50s. A lot of saxophone is the dominant instrument. There's not a lot of guitar, but sometimes there is. A Christmas song. Yeah, we're a little late for that, but oh well. On Federal by Freddie King, I Hear Jingle Bells. Really good rhythm and blues Jingle Bell song. And Christmas Tears. Here's a classic instrumental, Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs from '62, backed with Behave Yourself. One I didn't think I knew, but then I found out that I did know this song, The Pastel Six, Cinnamon Cinder from '62, with a really good instrumental, a lot better than the other song, I think, called Bandito. Another classic, Surfin' USA by the Beach Boys, backed with Shut Down. Really good hot rod song. Really cool, My First Blue Cat soul label. The Boy from New York City by the Ad-Libs and Kicked Around. The Game from '65, Game of Love by Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders. Some good British invasion there. And One More Time. Now, apparently these guys didn't last very long. They only lasted about 3 or 4 years, and then they broke up, and Wayne Fontana left, and then they got a new singer. Really good garage rock from the '60s. From Michigan, I believe, on Cameo. I Need Somebody by Question Mark and the Mysterians. Same people who did, I forget what the name of the song is. And 18. 69 Tears, I believe. Yep. 69 Tears. This was their first 45. King Curtis. Quicksand on Acta, or Atco, and On Broadway, an instrumental version. Some later rockabilly, My Girl Josephine by Jerry J. And 5 Miles from Home on High Records. Some more garage, Pipe Dream by the Blues Magoos. And There's a Chance We Can Make It. Sorry if you guys can't see these very well, but this is my first time making a video. Now I have a podcast I do, but the video is a whole nother thing, so I'll learn in time. Another on the Adco label, the Fireballs, Oh Woman Help, and Come On React. A really good pop, almost sunshine song, which I'm not a huge fan of that sunshine pop from the 60s, but some of it's okay. Smile a Little Smile for Me by The Flying Machine, and Maybe We've Been Loving Too Long from 69. AC/DC, we have A Touch Too Much. Everybody knows that song from a Highway to Hell album. And Walk All Over You on that later Atlantic pressing. And I'm not a huge fan of this artist, but this song is nostalgic for me. It was made a few years before I was born, but I used to listen to this back in the early 2000s when I was a teenager, when I was a preteen and teenager. And it's Straight Up by Paula Abdul. And it's a promo. Now moving back into some hair metal, we have Lady of the Valley off the Pride album from 87, White Lion. And When the Children Cry. We got some Crew here. We got Motley Crue, Wild Side on Elektra. And 5 Years Dead from the Girls, Girls, Girls album from 87. Great White, Once Bitten, Twice Shy cover with Rock Me and The Short of It. Also, I should mention that this is a special pressing. It's got a different label. It's got that little, looks almost like a Statue of Liberty. I don't know if you can see that. And that's all from Earwax Records. And now I'm going to show you what I got from the Derby City Music Expo in Louisville today. Oh, one more thing. I also have Carl Perkins. This was from Earwax Records. Carl Perkins. 2 hits here on the collectible reissue. Originally by Sun from 56. Blue Suede Shoes. And Honey Don't. Really good early rockabilly there. Sorry folks, I'm just making sure I went through all the first stack there. And now from more from that other record from the record show. You've got Henrietta by Jimmy D and the Offbeats from, I believe it was 57. Good rockabilly there. Backed with Don't Cry No More. On Dot. A classic. Without this song, there would probably be no Distortion, or, well, there was Rocket 88, but this is one of the first songs with Distortion by Link Ray, who was a Native American guy, believe it or not. A lot of people don't know that. And he lived about till 2005, so he lived a pretty long life. He was in his 80s when he died. And the swag. On Cadence. On Carlton, we have Geraldine by Jack Scott, more rockabilly for you. And With Your Love, a really good slow ballad. He has a pretty good dynamic range, apparently, because I read about it on Discogs. Another rockabilly on Dot. Living's Loving You from 59. And Susie Darlin'. A few that I was not familiar with until today. But a record guy named David turned me on to this because he had an old Caliphone record player that he would play if there was a song you wanted to hear from one of his records, you could listen to it before you bought it. So that's always pretty cool. On RV from 1960, Dance by the Light of the Moon by the Olympics, and Dodge City. Really good upbeat rhythm and blues / doo-wop. Another doo-wop I was not familiar with that's upbeat. I don't like that slow stuff that much, but I like the upbeat stuff with a good sax in it. You're Doing Me Wrong by the Harptones. And this is the second pressing, I'm told, from 56. And Life is a Dream, which it's a different song. It's not Life is but a Dream. Tippy Top by the Rays. Same people that did Still Out and Daddy Cool, but a couple years earlier. And Mooga Pan on Chess. And last of the 45s is Hide and Seek by Joe Turner, or some people called him Big Joe Turner, from 55. And Midnight Cannonball as the B-side. And now the 3 LPs. Jaguar, Power Games from 83, but this is a reissue on Real Gone Music. And this is on a really interesting color. I don't know if the light will show it, but it's supposed to be a green and brown camo. Let me see if I get the light better. Yeah, there we go. And this sounds great for a reissue. They were from the UK, and this is the first American issue, at least a legitimate one. And I'll show you the back there. And this, of course, this is new wave of British heavy metal. This is, people took punk rock and they took heavy metal and they made it more fast and aggressive. And there was a whole movement in the early to mid 80s, or actually the late 70s to the mid 80s. And there's even some demos from later than that. Just some really good stuff. Only 700 were pressed on this particular label. And here's a good one. Anthem. Bound to Break from 87. This is a Japanese heavy metal band. And I found out about this band because there was a girl on YouTube that I watched a video of her one time, and she showed off all her Japanese heavy metal vinyl, and she imported a whole bunch of this stuff in from Japan. It's a little bit warped, but it plays pretty well. And finally, last but not least, I'm really excited to get this because I've only found one copy at my local store, Pop's Resale in Lexington. Riot Thundersteel. And there's the back. And there's the lyrics. And it's on a beautiful, I would say, near mint CBS Associated Records from '88. And if anybody's not familiar with Riot, they were a band from Long Island that started in the mid-'70s. And they released 3 albums with the original singer. And the original singer, I'm not sure what happened. I think he had drinking problems or something. And he quit the band in the early '80s. And then they got this other singer in here. And they're still making albums until recently, until a few years ago. Anyway, I'm Josiah, and as you can see, I'm kind of new at this, at making videos. But I would like to start making more videos and show you and tell you the history of how I got into certain kind of music and different experiences I've had, and maybe cool record stories about how I found records, because I know we've all got a lot of those. About where we went to find them, or how we found them, or who we had to talk to, or what happened, like maybe your car broke down, or you got lost and it took you 3 hours to get to a specific spot. But just, I don't know, I watched people like Steve Carlson and Lazarus, which he came back on YouTube for a little while, and Eric Weinbender, the lady out of Kentucky, where I'm from. I think she lives in like near Somerset or something. I'm not sure. Melinda Murphy. I'm not exactly sure where she lives. And there's even a guy that's called Vinyl Junkie. I don't know his real name. He's out of Canada. And of course, Mr. Hall of Fame. He's like the earliest YouTuber I knew that was showing off records. Him and Laz, at least. And Scott Waters. And just a whole bunch of other people, especially Scott Waters, Steve Carlson, and Mr. Hall of Fame, and Eric Weinbender just made me want to get out there and just talk to people about music and just kind of tell cool stories and learn about new music, because that's one of my passions. And I always love learning about new music, and I love people turning me on to stuff. I got all kinds of stories about how I got into this band or how I got into that band, or just different things like that. And just keep rocking, VC. Josiah out.